Good evening, everyone, here and online. I have 2, 3 readings in mind, and they have been on my mind for quite some time. I had proposed it to Dhyanaji, but she only allowed me to read one of them. So today I get to satisfy my desire to read the rest of the two. But I am going to read them in a reverse sequence. This is 1822. This is "You shall attain me." So in these 3 verses, they're talking about influence, which is what sort of inspires or sort of affect the actions that we take. So whenever they talk about the word influence, that is what he's talking about. So 1822 says that influence is tamasic, which views every effect as though it had no connection with any other, and which disregards as irrelevant the motive, whether deeply valid or trivial, behind the act. And I'll read the explanation also and then see if you can reflect on it. People acting under the influence of tamas never think of action in terms of karmic cause and effect. They consider the act itself as the reality, as something quite independent of whatever motivated it. If they are fired from a job, whether or not they deserve to be fired is irrelevant to them. They're only upset by what they conceive to have been their mistreatment. If they're criticized for something they have done, they turn the canon of outrage on the criticism itself, not on the questions, did I deserve to be criticized? If they do a job badly, they ask, well, but at least I got it done, didn't I? And if someone feeds them food that they don't like it, they don't say, well, I know you meant well. Instead, they're simply distressed not to have been given what they liked. I'll read the rest in a moment. Now, I didn't read to tell you exactly, remember Taral, that day. It's easier to say things outwardly, isn't it? Like to someone else. I'll tell you 2 things about that. When Swami Gyanananda writes in his book, as a young boy, he had this habit of watching other people's breathing. So he would just watch, and then through the breath and then through how it is moving up and down, he could feel what's actually going on inside there. But then he also continues in that same sentence. Like it never occurred to him while he was young that maybe he can observe his own, till he met Yogananda and started walking on the path as well. So this reading is not to sort of tell each other what you did wrong last week or anything like that, but it's more for our own introspection. There's another story, you might have heard of this, which is from the life of Jesus Christ. One time a lady was caught in adulteration. So she committed adultery. In those days, it was a Kali Yuga. No? So the punishment of adultery is you can stone her to death. So everybody was there. There was a particular place made for that. A poor lady, she was dragged, and then all these guys with big stones in their hands. They went to that place, but thankfully Jesus Christ is sitting there. So she sort of runs to him and says, Master, help me, save me. So everybody is now, people know of him. So they say, what do you say? Should she be punished as the scriptures say or not? So to which I think he says, she should be. So those of you who are without sin can cast the first stone. And of course, everybody is waiting for the other to throw the first stone. But then in time, they realize it is not possible. And they realize the futility of this whole exercise, and they drop the stones and leave. See, I was thinking about this story, and it's like that was a very clever answer from Jesus Christ, isn't it? But it isn't just the cleverness that is not part of way to look at this story. Also, he was telling all of them there, don't worry about her. And yes, of course, she has made a mistake. Look yourself. Maybe you can fix this, which is probably far more important than going out and correct other people. And he didn't just tell her, okay, now you're saved, run away. She came to him, and he also tells her, don't worry about your mistake now, but go and sin no more. And when we look at this reading, or for that matter, this entire 18th chapter, uh, it gives us glimpses in terms of how we could actually use it for own reflection. When we talk about reflection also, now if you see, like, there is something inside us is not very open to even look at it. It is, it's easier to look at faults or problems on outside thing, but when it comes to within, even when we are on the spiritual path, we will say, yeah, of course I have trouble. If anybody here don't have any problems, they feel they are perfect. No, we won't say it. But there is something inside us that of resist even to look at it, because we feel that needs to go away very quickly, very quickly. So Amit is a very kind and nice and generous and beautiful person, as long as circumstances don't try his patience or people are not mean to him. You see, in the same sentence, what I'm trying to say is, like, yeah, I'm not the problem. It is sometimes the circumstances are only problematic. But you see, like, the same tendency when we look at this reading and say, yeah, I don't want to, we're losing the golden opportunity. It is also said that Gita is applicable not just for the sincere devotees or anyone, it's for everybody, whatever level of evolution they are on. So certainly it is applicable for devotee, and that's how I would like everybody to see this. And here he talks about the tamasic gun. Now we all know, the three gunas are there inside and whatnot, and I sort of humorously read that sentence also. But the important part of this reflection, this is not an intellectual exercise. Because then like when I first read this book, I thought, of course, everything made sense, and then I zoom past through the entire book. Gita is done. I said, yeah, that's great, next book. And because it is simple, as like Swami's writing is very deceptively simple. And even if I say something to you, yes, the human has three gunas. So yes, and you can also tell the same thing if you have a nice memory. Tomorrow you can say that. The crux or the power of these things lie in identifying their presence within. What I read now, maybe most of them is not true for ourselves. If we are fired from our job, we sort of celebrate, thank you, now I can go and join Ananda. Isn't it? Not that you were fired, you quit the job. But it is not necessarily literally true. But is there something where this kind of energy is felt within ourselves? And which is very easy. At any point in our existence, we find ourselves being defensive. No, wait a minute. What are you talking about? If you find yourself, what is it? This is what they are talking about. Why are we defensive about anything? And this is another spiritual principle they talk about. It is like, see, we talk about this word, no? Views, my preferences. But there are some things, we read all these things. We read scriptures, and then every time when we read, there is kind of an understanding we have. And on that understanding, we are building the rest of our empire. Where am I going to? What am I heading towards? Every one of us also will have some kind of a projection, isn't it? And based on what? Based on my current understanding. And I hold that very close. If tomorrow Pradnya comes and then contradicts, says, no, but this is not what it is. Like, what are you talking about? I will tell you this is where it is written. You see, but the tone of my voice itself, if we are aware enough, will tell you there is something brewing. You see, the masters don't go and say, you are all wrong, I know it all. Every time when we feel there's something, I need to be protected, there itself is a possibility. I now look at it. And this is the power, what I'm talking about. Sometimes we are afraid of being wrong. Something inside us says, it cannot be, because it will shake the fundamentals of it. But if you're interested in that final stability, we're actually looking for some stability inside. I was talking in that SRW, Kriyaban retreat, we were talking about, like there was a time when internal mahol was very quiet, like a tranquil, and I felt that this cannot be it. I knew this is not it. But I couldn't find out where. They talk about tranquility, it is tranquil. This is stable, what is there to be unstable? So it's only when there was instability, I realized, I got to find it now. Because just the way, see, we always sing this Brahmanandam, where we talk about like a Gagana Sadrushan, something like an Akash. And then Triguna Rahitam, like stability talks about also that, meaning and it is always there. So even in the midst of the turmoil, and this is sort of the quest, why even looking at these gunas, this is sort of gives us an idea, okay, there is a way, I can clearly see it, and meaning what? This is not it. So when we look at it, that sort of moves us to the next level, which is sort of, we can call it like the Rajasic level. And here what he writes, this is 1821. That influence, on the other hand, which is based on seeing the multiplicity of beings as real in themselves, is by nature Rajasic. And Swamiji explains the influence of Rajas on a person's nature inclines him to see himself and everyone else as being motivated by ego, selfishness, and personal motive. When we are not into the grip of that something which bothers us, we go home and we sort of at least make an attempt to reflect, isn't it? And then we come to a realization, yes, Avinash has his own views, I have my own views, and they're not matching. So the wise idea is what? Don't discuss, isn't it? And this is what sort of the phase, or if every time we sort of, this is the time, the space of sort of like Rajasic consciousness, or the influence it is talking about, where we understand where it is coming from. Now the attachment or the hold that we had, it is sort of released to a certain extent. And we expect, or we hope, now we can live happily ever after if I create space for him and I create space for myself. But as you can see, life is not going to let us, I think many times we make this kind of a choice because we got to exist today. One day they all say it will all be happily and ever finding freedom. But what about today? Today it is best that we sort of create this partition and then you go there so that tomorrow at least we can come and meditate. But underlying that, we also know there is something more. So these first two stages are sort of very relatable, aren't they? How we experience them even our day to day also. Now here comes 1820. O Arjuna, understand that influence to be sattvic, in which the one indestructible spirit is perceived as residing in all beings, and not as separate in each of them, undivided in the divided. The image of motion picture theatre is apt here. The countless images on the screen are only changing manifestation of the one light shining steadily behind the film in the projector. Such is the sattvic view of reality. It influences everything one does by bringing a unity to what others see as disunity, and harmony, therefore, harmony, therefore, to what others see as disharmony or even chaos. Now, this again is not a practice, as they talk about, and that's why this is, as I say, it is a reflection. This is sort of a discovery, what they're talking about here. I'll tell you another story about, this is a true story. I might have told this earlier as well. And we were talking about view and perception, but why? We just talked about also me and Avinash having different views, but why do we have different views? And why can't we just say, okay, let's come up to a common conclusion? And that's why it also all of these things sort of points to something within ourselves. So this monk, Vietnamese monk, this is the time when there was a Vietnam War was going on. And he felt the life of a monk is not, he said no, monks or the practitioners shouldn't just be praying. They got to go out into the field and display share what they're actually teaching, because this is what is actually much required. In fact, when the American war was going on with Iraq, later in the time he was asked, there was a lot of upheaval in United States. The country was divided. They didn't want the war. This is not right. So they asked him, if we vote for you to become the president of the United States, will you accept? Of course, hypothetical question. But to which he said, no, it is not that one self-realized being becoming a president and it dictates how everyone should be. He says everyone, in fact, who is leading should start practicing. Because in that experience, they will feel that harmony. See, why are we even talking about conflicts? We see every day after meditation, we are praying for it and whatnot, right? Why are there conflicts? Because everyone is very staunchly holding their views. I am the right one here. And your views have no particular place in where I am standing for. Only possibility is you have to come and join me. You see, as long as these true, strong things are there, it's bound to have conflict. So how? Only when both of them choose to go a further depth. So again, back to the same story where this monk, this is the time when he was very young, but he had a lot of compassion. It was a time when the two countries were also split in a war, and normal people is the one who suffer in these things, isn't it? So a lot of refugees will come from the northern part of the country, and then these guys were saying, okay, we will give you refuge. So their job was very simple. Whoever is in distress, they will create temporary shelters, make sure they're fed and whatnot. But the war was one problem. But while they were coming from sea, there were a lot of pirates. So many times as the boat is almost about to approach the shore, the pirate ship will come and then they will destroy, and then many people died in that thing. So one of the mornings he was expecting like a big group of refugees coming. These pirates came and he was extremely distressed by the outcome. He said like, why? He said, I had like a huge anger against the pirates, which is so natural. Say, of course, what they did was such a heinous crime. So he said like, in that distress, I slept. I said, I had a dream. And in that dream, he said, I was a very small boy, born in a very, very, very poor village. And my parents were nowhere to be seen because poor, they have to figure out their own food, forget about feeding me. So I was always by myself, just again struggling here and there with my friends, roaming around in search of something which I can just figure out for today. And this was entire my childhood. As I grew up, he said, then a few of my friends and we decided we got to do something about it. So friend had a thought. He said, let's go. There are a lot of ships close by. They come and then we can secretly go and steal something. And he says, one day I'm very afraid, but I went with my friend. We went on to that ship and we stole. And he says, probably that was the first time in my life I had sumptuous amount of food to eat. I was so fulfilled. Next day we repeated it. But this time just instead of gathering something, we also carried few things. 1 week to be able to eat sumptuous amount of food. Many people, many friends joined, realizing that this is actually working. And we decided that now this sort of become like a community of us. So let's go to that ship and get a lot more things. And it says like one time I went and then we were trying to get a lot more things. All of a sudden, the people on the ship woke up and there was a fight. And while that fight was becoming gory, this monk woke up. And in that moment he realized, what did he realize? He realizes the seed from which the action which he felt so repulsive have been born. So he said, in that moment the anger and the frustration and the irritation I had against them evaporated. Did anything change after that outwardly? Nothing. The ships kept on coming, some succeeded, some didn't succeed. But he, with his heart, pure compassion for everyone, he continued to do his work. We also talk about our own example from Babaji. I think somebody went to Babaji and says, how do you allow this trouble out in the world? How can you allow people to do these things? So to which Babaji's answers were very simple. He said, they're all my children. I shared that story before, is to realize, we cannot just say all is one. Just the way there was a moment of insight that the monk had. When we also, in our own experience, make a journey from within ourselves, those tamasic energy to rajasic energy, to that energy, whenever we find something sort of a disturbing, see, that is sort of the beginning point. It actually gives you a cue. In this very moment, can you trace back and find out that stability? So, it is a beautiful possibility, you see, and that's why I say, rather than fearing, because generally when things are happening inside, nobody appreciates. It is, of course, it is uncomfortable feeling. Who would like it? But the response to that, which is again a habitual response, we try to hide it quickly. We desperately and frantically put one practice after other, this can go away. As if like this is unwanted part of me. And I'll tell you again, the very clean part of me, white. But what we miss in that golden opportunity in that moment is the moment is like even there, we are focusing on that wave and I can stop this wave. The ocean could always be there. And then even once we sort of make that journey, just being patient, not rushing, and we touch, we realize what is it that is feeding this wave. And from that point onward, we don't need to feed it. The wave will still come. We can choose to connect and identify more to that ocean deep. This is the discovery though. And if anything, as I said, don't listen to this just by your mind. 18 has, we can continue. My time is almost up. But 18, 23, 24, 25, everywhere he is talking about the manifestation of this quality within each one of us. And every time when we discover, I find this. That is okay. There is no need to fix anything. You will see that will lead to the next discovery till we reach to the finality. The world we live in at the moment requires that. And this is what our contribution could be. If we can be that stable and we walk out there, people see through us that it is possible. It is possible. Not only just in the books and anything. And this is how we sort of spread. And this is how we can bring the full harmony that we seek even outwardly. Om Guru.